So today what we're going to do is some hip mobility movements to help get free your hips up a little bit and start to kind of activate the rotation, internal external rotation to get a little bit, see if you can get a little deeper range in like a squat pattern or a lunge position. And just for some of you, simply just getting out of a chair, helping getting this mobility in your hips will help to increase your range of movement capacity. So it's also good for your shoulders. So really, hips and shoulders work together, symbiotic or in synergistic. So when one hip foot's going forward, your other shoulder is countering that movement. So when that becomes restricted, eventually the spine suffers, lower back suffers, or you can have pain in the upper back, or even in just a limb, shoulder, or hip area. So to start out, what I'm going to have you do, you're going to put your hands back like so, about this distance to what feels comfortable. Now, if you have any shoulder injuries, please go to the range that feels okay for you. You can turn your fingers slightly out if it feels better. I like to turn my fingers with my first finger pointing forward. And then with this here, it's just kind of a general gross body movement. I'm just going range, just kind of just getting my lower back loose here, and also using the ground to massage the glutes a little bit. Just keeping my ankles somewhat active. So I'm rolling through my heels, because as we go through, try to keep your heels or your ankles flexed. So like so that you don't compromise your knee with any of those mobility movements. And I've seen a lot of people doing these movements and they're not paying attention to their ankles. Looks like there could be an issue with medial or lateral collateral. So you do need to be very aware of how your ankles are aligning when you're internally rotating strong. Okay, so just windshield wipers side to side like so. Again, you can do this as long as you feel, as long as it feels good. And then we're going to reset, and you'll notice you'll kind of creep away. You just have to scooch back and reset. Now we're just going to let our legs go out. And you're going to just use those adductors to squeeze and then let them drop out, and try to let your legs kind of drop out, not too strong, but we're moving in a way that, so we're warming up all those adductor muscles that tend to hold the hips tight, especially for men. We tend to get really tight in our adductors, and some women, but typically women have a little bit more range in their hips in these ways. So this is just starting to get that hip warmed up. And I know it's a lot of stress on the hands back here, so if you feel like you want to, again, turn them out, you certainly can. Good. Now I'm starting to feel, you go to where you feel about, with these, I would say maybe 60% fatigue. It's where it just feels like, I'm starting to feel that. It's starting to get a little shaky. If you get really shaky in this position, it's okay. You can just stop. Good. Then bring the feet together and just kind of let them hang out for a sec and just kind of rock the boat a little bit. Good. We're going to come flat, and now we're going to one leg, just let it drop. If there's pain with any of these, slow it down, or maybe move your feet closer or further away. You have to explore with that. You know your body better than I do. And then to the other side. Good. All right. Now we're going to further maybe shake out the wrists a little bit. My arm's getting a little bit tired. Okay. So now what we're doing here, we're going to extend with the foot flexed, slide across the floor as wide as you feel comfortable, and then drag your heel back in and then line it straight. So maybe do it about, maybe 8-10 times what feels comfortable for you. Out and in, out and in. So with this, I want you to push your heel into the ground. If you don't have a slippery surface, under your, sock. I'm wearing socks intentionally here. You can just put your heel on a piece of paper, or if you have the sliding discs, put your heel on that and press your heel into the ground with just enough, just the weight of your leg, and you'll feel those glutes starting to warm up. So now as we go out, we're going to start to turn the foot out a little bit, and you'll feel the deep external rotators in the glutes a little bit more. Good. And then we're going to reverse that, pushing the heel in. So really pull the heel into the ground here. This is a good way to warm up your hamstrings and all those attachments. So the hip has all these attachments, the deep internal rotators, external rotators, hip flexors, hip extenders, i.e. the glutes. So you got all of that. And you feel a little bit of burning, or maybe not burning, but you'll feel some activation. And in the future, I'm going to definitely wear slip pads, otherwise I'm going to have holes in all the heels of my socks. Good, so that should feel, and then just kind of let that leg hang out. Maybe shake out the wrists again if you need. Good, and you just feel, it'll feel like a little bit lighter, lightness. Good, now we're going to go other side. Starting out not pressing really hard to start. Just making a big sort of oblong circle with your heel. And again, going out as wide as you can. And then after maybe about 4 or so, you start to push that heel in a little stronger and start to externally rotate the foot. So rotate the foot out and around. And for my martial arts fans out there, this is a hook. They use it in jiu-jitsu. We use it in capoeira as well. So it's to sneak the foot in, hook, and do a trip. So it's kind of has layers to the movement. Good. I'm starting to feel that glute active. I don't know how many that was there. And reverse it. Again, you might have some kinks. Try not to, don't go further than your hips will allow you, especially in your hip flexors at first. So my left I can feel is a little cranky in the hip flexor area, some clicking and that sort of thing, as long as it doesn't cause you pain. There's a level of a good hurt, and there's a level of a bad hurt. And then there's just levels where it just feels good. Good. All right. Straighten the leg out. Straighten your other leg out. Maybe you sit up a little bit. Start drifting towards you guys. Shake those legs out. A little windshield wiper. Not all movement, you guys, needs to be super hard and hard to do. So sometimes you just have to, remember when we were kids, we just would play and just wiggle the feet in and out like so. And just see how far each one goes. So you try to go pigeon, it's like, oh, look at that. My right one can internally rotate more than my left. So just observing what your legs do and what kind of compensations your body tries to make. So when you're doing simple movements, the mindful thing is to check in on what your body's doing. We tend to pay attention when we're doing some big, huge dynamic movement. When we do the subtle stuff that's more habitual, we don't pay attention. So this is a way to pay attention. Good. Shake out the hands. There's going to be a lot of weight on the hands until we start moving through a few things. Now we're going to go back to this position. I want you to bring your feet wider than hips width, maybe shoulders width, or you can even go even further if you feel. Okay, now this one here, we're going back to dropping to the windshield, but we're going into our, some people call it 90-90s or shin box or whatever you want to call it. I like to keep, again, my ankles flexed and there. Okay, so as you're going, so you're basically just getting sort of a right angle. It's not set in stone. It doesn't have to be a perfect right angle, but somewhere near that. Getting this internal rotation, this external rotation in your hips. Again, keeping your ankles active so that you don't stress that knee. Good. I didn't mention in the beginning. You can start doing it right now. As you're going through these, try to just breathe in and out of your nose. Good. If this feels pretty good for you, come on up onto one hand. I'll turn to the side a bit, do this from the side. So you're going to come up to one hand, my hand's in line with my hip, and then I'm going to rotate to the other side, try to keep in line with the hip this way. Okay. And again, it's nothing too challenging. This might be challenging for some of you, and that's okay. Stay here and just get better at doing this for a while before you move on. And this is just fine right here. Some days I wake up and this is as far as I am. This is where I am. Good. Now we're going to start to add a little rotation. That hand's there. We're going to rotate, and you start to feel a stretch down this bottom side into that QL. And also you may feel a little bit into that hip in the front. And the idea is not necessarily to hold the stretch. You certainly can if you want, but I'm actively twisting through. Keeping those ankles flexed, actively twisting. The idea is movement. Keep it moving. The joints need mobility. It needs movement to keep the synovial fluids going and flowing. Good. Now after we've done that, we've massaged those glutes pretty good. Now I'm going to turn, like reach back here, but instead of reaching back, I'm just going to take my sternum and I'm going to aim towards my knee. Now be gentle with this one because your piriformis is in a very can be a very stretched position. So also your external rotators of your hips. So if you know you're a person that has trouble bringing your knees out when you're doing a squat, this is probably going to be pretty tight for you. Or it might be just tight in general after doing a workout. This is also good for post-workout if you do legs, pulling a lot of deadlifts, squats, and that sort of thing. After that, you want to get some of that mobility back. And you see how I'm just pulsing through? And I'm just kind of asking myself, asking my hip, okay, can I go a little bit further? And you can see I'm inching my hand forward as I go to give yourself support when you reach forward. Keep a long spine. So the goal is not to round your back to make this happen. It's to keep a tall spine the whole time and hinge in your hip. If there's any cramping at any time, just come out of it. Maybe you go to the other side right away. I like to kind of stay for a little bit. Now, if you're one of those people who are not getting much out of that, bring this foot a little further forward, and that'll give you a little bit more stretch down into the glute max, even a little bit more. Now, yes, this is a modified pigeon stretch, but the pigeon stretch is a great stretch, but this you can do it in a various ways if you know what muscles you're trying to stretch. So be careful with just jumping into pigeon, especially if you have knee issues. But this is just sometimes a little more friendlier way to work through. Wow, that feels good. So now I'm going here. You can see it from the back. My hand might start here. And I just kind of inch my hand forward, that right base hand forward, a little bit more. A little bit more. And you're just moving through. I'm not bouncing. I'm just actively trying to go forward. Okay, so it's not a plastic stretch. It's technically, I guess it would be a ballistic stretch, or it's a little more dynamic. So if you think of it like that, and I'm moving like this, If I was finishing a workout, I may do a little bit more. If I have structural tightness, I may do a little bit more of a plastic stretch to get length in there. Typically, plastic stretches you have to be careful with, unless you structurally know why you're doing it. Good. All right. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to move through a few times and see how that feels. I may even do my twist again. You may feel like the hips are starting to get a little bit more free. You can see I'm kind of drifting away down there. So right there. All right, so now we're going to do a little movement where we're starting to activate the glute a little bit. And I'm coming up and then I'm dropping back down. Feel free to use the assistance of your hand. You don't have to, you know, show off or anything. Just use the assistance of your hand and try to activate that glute to help you get up there. Again, if it causes any pain or discomfort, don't push it. But if it's a good hurt still, that's great. You can work through that a little bit. Good. So now I'm starting to feel a little more mobile. You'll notice that I'm going on my knees now. So hopefully you have a yoga mat or some sort of padding and you're not doing this on the gym floor, but some of you guys might be hardcore and you may do that. So you'll notice also my shin box is starting to change now. Okay, so I'm not so much in this position. I'm bringing the foot back so that I can roll up and open up into this position. So I'm starting to stretch that hip flexor. Okay, use the hand to come back down. If you're comfortable with this movement and you want to try to control without using your hands, you can give that a try. I'm going to turn towards you guys so you can see that. So I'm going without my hands through here and then a lift. If it's really hard for you, just use your hands. Main thing is so you don't tweak your knees. Move mindfully. This also helps with flexion or plantar flexion in your feet and dorsiflexion. So now I'm going to a point. And you see, I'm not worried about, oh, can he do it without his hands? Like, I'm not worried about that. I know I can, but I want to feel a few things. Okay. So very good. Let's center ourselves back, shake those legs out. Okay, now with this sequence, this one is to get back to a standing position. So the goal here, and eventually we'll do it without our hands, but right now we're just working to get here, transition. Now I'm here. Drop in, full range, back, swing that leg back, use your hand. Good. Roll to the other side. Use assist if you need. I'm going to swing around and I'm going to drop in. Again, this does feel much better when you have a padded floor. So I have padding under here, so it helps. Okay, now I'm going to start adding my hands to syncopate with my shoulders and my hips and that running position. So I reach, come up, extend in the hip. Okay, curl back. Feel that range. Good. Okay, so you see how this is active mobility. It's going to be challenging. This is a little bit more of a challenging one. I'll try a few times without my hands the full way. Move mindfully. Good. I'm going to change my angle a little bit so you guys can kind of see how I'm doing this here. Let's see. We're gonna go here. Okay, here. I'm coming up through here. Extend. See that range there? Nice. Back. All the way around. Extending that hip. So you're making about a big C on the ground as far as a pattern, or a V. It's more of a V. Good. Good, and then calm it down. All right. So have to see how your hips feel after that. So this is the mobility and stability of the hips. Again, move slow. I was moving a little faster so I could get through the video a little bit faster for you guys. But as you're going through these movements, try to just feel, if something feels like it's tweaking or catching, just unwind it and then see if you can move through that pattern and find a level of ease with that, with the movement. If you can't, then that day, then maybe you're just, that's where you are for the day. And that's totally fine, because all this is going to be good for you, just getting your movement going. All right, so have fun with the hip mobility, stability exercises here, and we'll see you guys in the next video.